So after mentioning the three types, he moves on to discuss the mahdhurat, which are the prohibitions of ihram. And these prohibitions are due to the fact that you are in a state of sanctity. You are a muhrim. So things that would be traditionally permissible because you have embarked upon the rites of Hajj in a sacred state, there are some things that become impermissible, and they number 9. Much like fasting, we refrain from things that are typically permissible. During the day of Ramadan, the daylight hours, they are impermissible. So the first of those things is to remove hair. And that is any hair on the head or on the body, whether it's done by shaving or otherwise. And you'll note that there's a difference between removing a single hair intentionally, 2 hairs, or 3 or more, and we'll discuss that shortly. The second thing is trimming the nails, whether that be fingernails or your toenails, without a legitimate excuse. So like if the eyelash was hanging down into your eye, or the fingernail got chipped and broken, and you had to remove the eyelash, or you had to remove the nail due to, some natural occurrence, it wasn't intentional, then there would be no penalty, and this is permissible to do. The next thing is to cover the head, and this is for men only, of course. Women's heads should be covered with hijab. This is not just during Hajj, but every day of the year they decide to go out into public. So for a male to cover their head while they're in the state of ihram is impermissible. And the ears are included with that, and it doesn't matter what you cover your head with, whether it's some paper or like gauze that is wrapped for medicinal purposes. Maybe there's a wound and you need to put some medicine, so they put something on the head. All of that is included, regardless of how strange it may be, if you put dirt or mud or something on the head. As for things like seeking shade under a tree, or in the shade of a building, or from the roof of a car, or inside of a tent, then these things are permissible to do. Also, a part of this covering the head for the men, the women's equivalent is covering their face, right? So part of the aura of the woman is her face, according to this madhab, which means her face should be covered, unless she is in a state of ihram. That would be the equivalent of a man's head. So while she is in ihram, she should not cover her face, nor should she cover her hands. She should not be wearing gloves, unless there is some need for her to perhaps draw the headscarf over her face without fixing it to her head. And this would be in the presence of men walking by, or in crowds where it could cause some disruption or even some possible temptation. In that case, she could draw over the headscarf to cover her face. Otherwise, the face should be uncovered. After that is number 4, and that is wearing fitted clothing, and this was discussed in the previous session. So it is impermissible to wear fitted clothing, and this is also for males only. Fitted clothing means like what I'm wearing, a shirt, pants, things that are tailored to the body. What you should be wearing, the ridat, the upper garment, which is like the large towel or bath sheet, and the izar, which is the lower portion wrapped around the waist. Unless, of course, you don't have an izar to wrap around your waist. In that case, you can wear pants. Or if you don't have sandals to walk around in, then you could wear al-khuffayn, which would be like the socks or the leather socks or something of that nature. And it would be permissible due to the absence of what is required. Number 5 is tib, which is perfume. This doesn't mean scented things. with scents that are with odor that is not طيب. So طيب, for example, is oud, it's misk, those types of traditional perfumes. But scented things with the smell of orange or strawberry, fruity things, this is not considered طيب. These are just considered fruity odors, okay? So here, طيب is the traditional perfumes, and this of course is impermissible after you enter into the state of ihram. So you cannot perfume your body, you cannot perfume your clothes, and you cannot use طيب in consumables like food or drink if the smell becomes obvious. So some of the things that are used for طيب are also used in ingredients. Right? They have multiple usages or purposes. And so if the smell of the طيب becomes apparent in the food, either the food or the drink, and its taste becomes apparent, then it is impermissible, as well as intentionally smelling the perfumes. So if you do that, it is a sin, and you have to give an expiation. There's a ritual expiation for that. Number 6 is killing consumable game animals, land game animals. Consumable land game animals. These are things that you hunt on land, not in the sea. And slaughtering them. So hunting them and slaughtering them. Also those consumable land game animals are whatever is produced through crossbreeding. So if a land game animal were to crossbreed with a domesticated animal, you cannot hunt or slaughter that animal. Ihtimalan, as a precautionary measure, if you will. So this is impermissible, and there is an expiation for this, and that will come later, the description of what it is. It's also impermissible while you're in ihram to assist anyone in hunting, whether that be by pointing out the game animal, saying, over there's a gazelle, or lending them the spear or the knife or the gun to shoot, handing them to it, any of those types of actions which assist in the hunting or the slaughter of those game animals, and it's impermissible. The next thing, number 7, is the marriage contract, aqdun nikah. This is impermissible, and if it is performed, it's actually invalid. It is invalid from the muhrim. And so if they perform the marriage, or they got married themselves, or they were the wali or the wakil, it's invalid for them, whether they intended or not. Number 8 is intercourse, which obligates a ritual bath, a ghusl. So this, regardless if it's done intentionally or forgetfully, or if it's done through coercion, this will of course spoil a person's hajj if it's done before the first disengagement. They will have to continue to make the hajj and then make it up immediately the following year. The last one, number 9, is anything that would lead up to that, any intimate acts between a man and a woman. It will be sinful, but it will not spoil the person's hajj. So these are all of the impermissible acts. They call mahdhurat, impermissible acts during the hajj, and they require some type of fidya, except for killing lice or performing the marriage contract. So those 2 things, killing lice, and there are some other creepy crawlies that can be killed if needed. Lice and the eggs of lice that can be killed during ihram or performing the nikah, the marriage contract. This does not require a fidya. He says that the eggs and locusts, you have to pay their market value wherever they are killed, or wherever they are taken. So if you find wild eggs out in the bar, in the land, or if you run into locusts, they used to consume those locusts. Those things have to be, they have to be paid for in terms of the expiation. And also he says here, this is key, regarding a hair or a fingernail. One hair or one fingernail, you're required to feed one poor person. So you cannot intentionally remove even a single hair or trim a single fingernail. This will require you to feed one poor person. And then if you remove 2 hairs or 2 fingernails, you are required to feed 2 poor people. Okay, so basically what that means is 3 or more, 3 hairs or 3 fingernails is considered an actual removal. And then the expiation changes and it gets more extensive. Necessity knows no law for the muhrim, which means that in a case of necessity, then you have to do what you have to do, and meaning if you have to commit one of these prohibitions, you have to do it. It won't be sinful, but you do have to pay the expiation.